Thank you for joining us on Education Talks. I'm Kadeen Mark, a past teacher. In our top story tonight, parents in some schools have taken to the streets to demand more inclusivity in their children's schools. Earlier today, some concerned parents gathered outside their district education offices, protesting what they described as a systematic failure to create inclusive learning environments for all students.
See, all these schools I just listed here, right? The physical infrastructure do not cater, right, for any child who is physically impaired, right? How you reach into the library, right, when you do have no ramps? How you cross a drain in a wheelchair, right? How you going to use the washroom without no railing, right? Similar, how you going to use the lab, right? You're passing through a doorway, the wheelchair can't pass through. You go to the canteen, you can't even reach the canteen. When you reach the canteen, right, about 100, 200 students there. How the child going to reach over there?
Clip we just saw. I'm sure you will agree that inclusive education is a topic that engenders passionate responses. Trinidad and Tobago's inclusive education policy is based on the Ministry of Education's philosophical direction that every child has an inherent right to education, that every child has the ability to learn, and that schools should provide for all students programs which are adapted to varying abilities. Let's get to know our panel.
In terms of the physical infrastructure and inclusivity, East Secondary School has ramps for students with wheelchairs and an elevator to access the upper floors. North Secondary School made recent upgrades, such as a cafeteria with handrails and ramps and an auditorium featuring accessible washrooms. While these features exist and are quite useful in these two schools, they only promote inclusivity to some extent. All 5 schools, South, Central, West, East, and North Secondary, with the exception of what was aforementioned, presents with the following challenges. The classrooms are not equipped with specialized furniture for students with physical disabilities, nor do they have functional or appropriately placed power outlets for students to use any assistive technology with. The canteens are not accessible for students with physical disabilities, nor do they have a designated area where students can safely and efficiently purchase their items. Each of the 5 schools indulges in teaching practices that rely heavily on traditional, teacher-centered, chalk and board lessons and standardized tests. There is no differentiated instruction or assessment to cater to students who have diverse needs. This makes teaching and assessing challenging because as a teacher, you must have the knowledge and the tools to do both these things in the most effective way.
Based on the clip shown previously, the parent representative for the schools would have identified the 2 main issues their children have been experiencing. Teachers, you all are here today to discuss these issues. One being challenges in teaching and assessing diverse learners, and the other, insufficient physical infrastructure with reference to physically disabled persons. Let's start the discourse.
So yes, one of the issues expressed was the challenge that teachers face with teaching and assessing diverse learners. We all can agree on this here. Differentiated assessment aims to provide multiple ways for students to demonstrate learning. It moves away from a one-size-fits-all approach and acknowledges the diversity in student readiness, learning profiles, and interests. Tomlinson, 2014. Its goal is to ensure equitable opportunities for success while maintaining high standards. So according to Vygotsky, 1978, instead of assessing all students with the same standardized testing, students should be assessed with what they know and how they are able to learn with assistance. So some studies suggest that differentiated assessment improves academic performance and also reduces gaps. Hickox, 2012. A practical approach to assessing diverse learners integrates strategies such as a teacher training program development for teaching and assessing diverse learners. Now, these methods rooted in inclusivity and equity that all students can demonstrate their knowledge and skills in ways that reflect their unique strengths and experiences. By adopting these practices, schools can create an environment where every learner feels valued and empowered to succeed.
And it's important to place emphasis on students feeling valued and empowered. As it relates to both issues, the issue of the infrastructure of students with physical disabilities and methods of teaching and assessing diverse learners. And this comes from a variety of ways. Based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he highlighted safety as one of the levels in his pyramid, which speaks to security, stability, and freedom from fear. If students do not feel safe in this school, then how can they really have a strong level of comfort and feel secure? How can safety be fostered if there are no modifications to their school environment to meet those basic needs that they have? Love and a feeling of a sense of belonging is paramount to students feeling included in their school and classroom, because feeling like they are loved and cared about is directly related to how they perform at school, and this impacts on their self-esteem. So students, when they come to us and they realize that in a lot of ways they are different from the other students, but yet they are still treated the same, they understand that there's nothing in place for them to really grow and learn and develop and feel comfortable in a space that's supposed to be inclusive for everyone. So you want to make those modifications, you want to highlight those issues, and you want them to have that comfort of knowing that they are important too, and their needs will also be met. According to CURT 2021, when all these needs are met, people will feel adequate, capable, strong, and worthy. If these needs are not satisfied, however, people will feel incompetent, unprotected, and unimportant. And it's important that in these schools, we really do place emphasis on making sure that these students feel that way. It's really, really important.
That's very interesting. So, who do you think should be responsible for implementing and promoting these inclusive practices in your schools?
We are looking at the school administration and the teachers to be the main stakeholders in this initiative. The school administration role will be to establish a vision for inclusive assessment. We could look at to develop a clear policy to create school-wide guidelines and emphasize the importance of diverse and inclusive teaching and assessment practices. We can look at to communicate inclusive goals, highlight the value of inclusive teaching and assessment in fostering equity and improving the outcomes of all students. Another point we could look at ensuring access to diverse assessment tools. We can invest in resources, we can provide tools and materials for alternative assessment. And when we say alternative assessment, we could look into the assistive technology, project-based learning kits, and so on. We can also look at promote multiple assessment methods to encourage the use of varied formats, such as the portfolio. We can do peer reviews, oral presentations, and group projects to capture different learning styles. We can also incorporate the online learning to conduct assessment. When we say online platforms, we could look at Microsoft Teams, Kahoot, and quizzes.
Just to add to what my colleague said, school admins can advocate for policy changes. They can liaise with educational authorities, advocating for systematic changes that support inclusive teaching and assessment at district or regional levels. They can also seek and secure funding for resources and training to implement inclusive teaching and assessment practices.
Those are some excellent points, panel. While administrators do play a part in implementing differentiated instruction and assessment, collaboration with teachers to ensure its implementation at the classroom level is necessary. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Teachers can play a critical role in implementing inclusive practices in the classroom. So according to the Education Policy 2023 to 2027, the highest performing education systems are those that combine quality with equity. They can adapt assessments to suit the diverse needs for their students, recognizing that learners demonstrate their knowledge and skills in different ways. We have identified 3 different ways to help with the teaching and learning for diverse learners. So 1, the use of differentiated assessments. This offers multiple formats for assessments such as written tests, oral presentations, portfolios, or practical demonstrations. This allows students to choose the medium that aligns with their strengths. Example, video submission for a project or a graphic organizer instead of a written essay. The impact that this is going to have on students is that differentiated assessments provide a more accurate reflection of individual student capabilities. Another area identified was the implementation for formative assessments. This is a method where teachers can use platforms such as quizzes, reflective journals, peer assessments, or classroom discussions to track understanding over time. This type of formatting provides feedback that emphasizes growth and areas for improvement rather than just grades. The impact on students is that these methods reduce the pressure of high-stakes testing and encourage continuous improvement. Another area is the collaboration with other stakeholders. What does this mean? Teachers can share insights with parents about their children's learning styles and progress. When we collaborate with special education teams via the Student Support Services Division, SSSD, to create individualized education plans, the IEPs. This includes tailored assessment strategies and advocate for the implementation of policies to have extra time for all assessments. This can impact both teachers and learners. When we collaborate, it ensures a comprehensive approach to meeting the needs of all learners.
Correct. And to add to all those points that you made, Danielle, the DACA framework on education for all states to offer education of good quality. Educational institutions and programs should be adequately and equitably resourced, with the core requirements of safe, environmentally friendly, and easily accessible facilities, well-motivated and professionally competent teachers, and books, other learning materials and technologies that are context-specific, cost-effective, and available to all learners. And so the points which you made clearly aligns with information that already currently exists in our national policies. EFL encompasses all our different types of learners.
I wholeheartedly agree. Differentiated instruction and assessment align with Piaget's constructivist view of learning, emphasizing active engagement and reflection. Constructivism, as described by Brooks and Brooks 1993, involves constructing understanding through experiences. Bada et al. 2015 outlines constructivist classroom goals, including student-directed learning, evaluating alternative solutions, authentic tasks, student-centered approaches, collaboration, multimodal representation, like video, audio, text, and fostering metacognition through reflection. In this approach, teachers guide students in active reality-based problem solving and experimentation, encouraging reflection on their learning process. Assessments also go beyond traditional standardized tests to include student work, observations, and personal viewpoints, allowing learners to showcase their unique perspectives and interpretations. Okay, panel, let me draw your attention to the clip that we viewed earlier. Another major issue that stood out was a lack of infrastructure for physically disabled students in these schools. How are these schools not promoting inclusivity for the physically disabled?
Yes, clearly there is insufficient physical infrastructure which results in exclusion in the schools. Administration can advocate for inclusive policies and budget allocations. They could work with school boards and local government to advocate for policies and funding that addresses infrastructure needs. Being inclusion focused ensures internal policies prioritize facilities like accessible classrooms, assistive technology, and allowing class sessions to be recorded for physically disabled students.
My question is, based on everything that you've listed, who is going to help with these things on a short-term basis?
A main stakeholder would be school administration. They can enhance the infrastructure to support students with physical disabilities by providing accessible physical spaces. They can modify classrooms using furniture that already exists within the school to use for students with physical disabilities. Comfortable chairs with cushions, simple as merging two desks to create a wider surface area to write on. You should ensure that classrooms, gymnasiums, auditoriums have seating that can accommodate students with mobility aids. Students with physical disabilities can be seated closer to doorways so it is easier to maneuver in and out of the classroom. Restrooms should be accessible and they should also be equipped with proper features such as handrails and, if possible, lower sinks to meet the needs of students with physical disabilities. Also, there should be accessible parking, right? A few spaces should be designated for parents of students with disabilities, close to the entrance and exit of the school.
Develop and practice safety and emergency procedures and policies, evacuation routes, evacuation procedures must be account for all students with physical disabilities having accessible exits such as the ramps. We should be able to identify and even practice during drills. We must also ensure that there are designated staff members trained in assisting students with mobility challenges during an emergency. We can also look at visual signage. We can use large fonts. We can use clear and even color contrast signs with universal symbols that will guide these students with physical impairments. We can also have regular maintenance and upkeep of the school. We can have routine inspections to ensure ongoing accessibility. School infrastructure must be regularly maintained and inspected for issues such as the non-functional electrical outlets or even uneven pathways that we all have in our schools.
The school's alumni is another stakeholder that can help with implementing inclusive practices in the schools. School alumni can play a significant role in improving school infrastructure to promote inclusivity for students with physical disabilities. They can contribute through fundraising events like bazaars, walkathons, and cake sales, as well as volunteering their skills in areas like electrical work, plumbing, and landscaping. Alumni can raise awareness via social media and local media, adopt pledge programs for regular financial contributions, and foster community involvement by partnering with NGOs and other groups to secure grants and support. Additionally, experienced alumni can mentor students, sharing experiences, offering guidance, and fostering a sense of belonging to support holistic development.
Oh yes, schools are definitely should be focusing on developing the holistic child. According to Thompson and Thompson 2018, schools are more than just a place for students to get a standardized education. Schools must be an incubator that grows students into productive, empathic, and responsible adults. The impact that schools have on our communities essentially affect the way our communities grow. The balance of learning rests in the practices of inclusion, respect, and self-appreciation.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on Education Talks, where we explored some inclusive practices that we can promote in our schools. Thank you and good night.